Well, we're really excited. Good to see you. Put a voice and face to my voice and face. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. I got to see Monica the other day at the meeting. And but good to see both of you, and I'm excited about this event. And the only thing I was just trying to share that I just do not feel comfortable representing myself. I mean, like the article, that's a public article, no problem. Keep that up if you will, because that Connect 313 put that article out. But I think we lead with, my professional affiliation, and it can be mentioned that, that's a part I play in the community, but I'm not representing Connect 313 today. I tried very hard.
No problem.
We understand.
No problem.
We understand.
We fly with those who do.
I gotta go grab my
And,
notebook.
and for those who don't recognize that, well, we're flying. And there is in the newspaper this morning 4 articles that pertain to what we're attempting to accomplish here.
I saw one of them as I was logging on. I was reading the one with Rakota.
And
yes.
The governor's growing mission together, which is the center point of what we're describing and discussing. And we have State Rep Carter here today to discuss growing together mission. She was on the committee for formulating that report.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. See, and that was in the news.
And she had
wonderful.
A great friend of ours. So in works that we've done in Pontiac. So that will be entertaining and interesting. And then we have the stuff that was happening at the Renaissance Center, front page, lead article.
Oh.
We have to reimagine that because General Motors has now left the building and so forth and so on, even though they're still in ownership.
I read that.
So that is like secondary, but not, because if that's got to be reimagined, imagined for whom? Well, for those who are young today, that is going to have to be taken into consideration. So all of these things tie together in a dynamic fashion when you're talking about futuring. And that's what we're really talking about here. We're talking about things aren't what they were. The world isn't what it was. The state of Michigan, basically a Johnny One Note, automotive, isn't what it was, and it needs to become more strategic in the way in which it's engaging its future. And Bill Ford had a great article today in the Free Press where he made a case about EVs, mobility, future. I mean, all the right words. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we're at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing.
Right.
You deal with large organizations, back to the original point. Sometimes they're a little bit behind the curve and they need a little bit of time to take everything into consideration. We don't have any time. We're out of time.
We are out of time.
We have to move. And the great thing, I think, in the moment, education wise, is the recognition that the world has changed. And this industrial model that we've clung to served us very well, very well. Serve those of us whom are younger in the future, as well as perhaps other ways of working, other ways of seeing the world around us offers young people today. And young people are deplaning. I mean, they're going for every place but here. That's a significant problem. So if we're not playing that song that resonates so richly with imagination and creativity, we're missing the point. The kids are off the charts, and that's not new. The kids have been off the charts forever.
Right.
And we were held to, well, don't worry, you're going to be taken care of. They'll work in the factory. Well, okay. And who can argue that? It made the middle class. Nobody will argue that. But there are also so many other ways of turning one's teething successfully. And we all know that. We all know they exist. And I can remember the refrain when I was a young person. It was, don't worry, if you have talent, you'll discover it and you'll be fine. We don't have anything for you right now while you're here tending, the next 10 years of your life or 15 years of your life or 20 years of your life. but don't worry, you'll be taken care of. And
Mhm.
that's, was a great deal true, but I never paid any attention to that.
Mhm.
Okay, I went on and chose some things that weren't so obvious, photography being one of them. I shot cars for a living for a number of years, just because the opportunity was made available to me. And then I went into the service and I got a little bit of computer training, and I came back and I said, geez, computers and technology, what's this all about? And I was just at the right place at the right time, and
Mhm.
created a studio with the digital contagion and moved that needle back in the 80s and the 90s.
Mhm.
DC for a couple of $1 million. If I'd have had a button on a car, anything on a car, I could have gotten 10, $20 million. But since I was just going to do, artistic ways of using technology to advance the print industry, which
Mhm.
destroyed. Okay, by advancing technology, we destroyed the print industry. We all know that, and yet it's hard to take that into consideration, to recognize what actually happened. Yeah, we were advancing technology, but in doing so, we decimated an industry. I mean, that's how powerful that technology was, and it was way ahead of its time. We're still working with it. We're still seeing it. We're still seeing the remnants of those original, innovative people in the 80s and 90s, and we're just now getting to the second round of something like that called AI, artificial
Mhm.
intelligence, right?
Mhm.
And everybody's worried about how it's going to impact their jobs. Really, they should be concentrating on how they're going to ask it a good question, and get on with the world of imagination and creativity. It appears threatening and isn't. It really is an assist, but you got to have the right mindset. It isn't something where you ask it for an answer and it gives it to you. You have to have a really qualified question. As you know, all good answers come from really good questions.
Well, and in that, as you were sharing, even sharing about really good, questions, really good answers. But when we think about it, in that time frame, people were thinking critically.
Yeah, exactly.
And we don't have that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
I think
so
I
true.
think you nailed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to say anything more
Yeah,
than that.
okay, we're done. Done for the day.
If you can't, real creativity, if you're not critical thinking, it's just fluff. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's what everyone truly wants us to believe, is that creativity is just the arts and craft table and it doesn't bother anybody and it's cute.
Yeah, it'll go away.
Right.
And most people will tell you, I'm not creative. And it was just they were never allowed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Everybody is creative at some point and to some degree. Is it true that others more than some? Yeah. That happens to be true, but that's because they choose to practice the craft.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you
Well,
can't.
you guys, hey, we've just got to have people listen to you because you are on the road to solving this. I was just thinking, my husband and I were delivering some Chromebooks for work on Friday. And as we drove through different areas, we noted how many dry cleaners were closed.
Oh,
Another industry kind of decimated.
right.
There's
Yeah.
one
Yeah,
dry cleaner, we pass it frequently. The only car outside of it is the owner's. And he
Wow.
has so much clothing in there. Because, before pre-COVID, you had business casual,
Right.
Fridays first, right? Monica
Right.
may be too young. You may be too young to remember that. Monica, started with Business Friday, Business Casual Friday, right, Jim?
That's right. That's right. So some of us were born casuals.
No harm intended. No disrespect, Monica. No harm
No,
intended.
none taken.
But we saw it happen. So it was Business Casual Fridays. Then it just inched on into maybe a couple of days a week. And then finally it was every day. And then by the time COVID came, and I'll stop talking because your guests are coming in.
Oh, no, please keep going.
Yeah. So then it became, goodness, you're wearing a decent top with pajama bottoms, perhaps, and slippers at work.
He can't be getting anything done.
Now, I, on the other hand, wear a full attire. My husband said, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Because I might forget and get up and the camera's on. I can't afford it." I even wear I wore my high heel shoes during COVID because I said if I don't, I'll never be able to put them back on.
Got the right feel.
Oh my goodness. You are too fun.
But you're right on the money. I think we are on the cusp of something, from the previous. In fact, I see Bart is in. Bart, are you available?
That's why I'm here.
Oh, there we go. Bart Eddy experience. Bart has put his genius into a program called the Brightmore Makerspace over at Detroit Community Schools, and it's just an awesome program. It goes right along with what you're suggesting. And Bart, can you share a little bit about your program?
Ooh, okay.
Not to put any. We're just taking people as they come in, and we want them to do a little soft introduction.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say that we focused on hands-on learning with our youth, hands-on experiential learning, with this whole idea of connecting with workforce development and community transformation in particular. So we work out of the Brightmore community. Our program runs after school and on the weekends, and we're deeply connected with our neighbors in the community, block clubs, so on and so forth. But in that regard, we of course, needed something to present. And so we developed out of the maker space a carpentry woodcraft program, fashion design, electronics, robotics, and filmmaking. And so we actually literally employ our youth. They're paid at the same rate that the city of Detroit pays their young people during the summer. And obviously we have to raise our own funding to do that. Although we do have the support of our school, Detroit Community Schools, to do this kind of work. Makerspace, I think I could say, is not only about making things, but it is a place and opportunity for young people to come and to fashion their own identity. And over time, one begins to see that it really works with the young people. They derive something tremendous in the sense of opening up capacities they never knew they had before, and eventually being able to take it out into the world in their own way, whatever they choose to do. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. We've done many. I think you've got some pictures up here. We have a bus, rolling Maker Lab bus that's just repaired, about ready to roll out in the community. It's got a sound system in it. We operate our tools through a solar unit generator, which is in the bus itself, and our solar panels are on the roof of the bus. We have a lighting arrangement in there, and it's set up as a carpentry shop, woodcraft shop, and also for bike clinics out in the community too. To the right, if you happen to be looking at this picture, you'll see an outdoor classroom that we built during the pandemic. This is quite large. This is something that we did with the Cody Rouge Community Outreach Center. It's a 32 by 32 stage, essentially, with a roof on it. And they've done all kinds of things through there, even uniquely having a mayoral debate. So that was, we worked on that in 2019, I think. We've had the opportunity as well over the years to connect internationally. We've taken small groups of young people to both Kenya and China, where we worked with folks over there and children as well. And yeah, it's an ongoing work. We're 15 years into it now in a very active way. And I would say deeply connected with the city of Detroit and their Grow Detroit Young Talent program. So during the summers, we can work, we can employ the youth for 120 hours during the summer, which amounts to 5 hours a day, 4 days a week for 6 weeks. So I think that gives a little bit. We're always trying to hustle our work too. Last summer, we were able to partner with the city of Detroit Planning and Development Department, and along with working with Cody Rouge Youth, we designed and developed a stage for Stein Park, which is over by behind Cody High School in the Cody Rouge neighborhood.
And weren't you also working with the community center in Brightmoor? Wasn't the
Well, of course, the community center in Brightmoor is no longer open. We're working through the Brightmoor Alliance. The community center in Brightmoor is waiting. It's actually, I really should mention this. It's a friend of ours, Dawn Wilson Clark, it is to become the Dawn and Jonathan Clark Healing Center.
Oh, okay.
That building needs to be completely redone, but that is the vision for that.
So how do we help that?
They have to raise a lot of funding to bring the building back up to speed again.
You have any idea how much?
Oh, I'm going to say probably $3 million at least.
Uh-huh.
So it's a significant amount of money, but I should say that in connection that probably maybe 4 years ago, the neighborhood association in Brightmoor, along with 482 Forward in Detroit, but particularly the Brightmoor Neighborhood Association, decided that they did a poll of many of the residents, asking them what was the #1 issue in the community that you are facing now. And that #1 issue turned out to be trauma. And so since that time, many of us in the community have been looking for healing ways to deal with trauma. Makerspace activity is one of those ways. It's not the only way, but it's certainly a very powerful and effective way, particularly when you begin to think of the efficacy of the arts and crafts and just the positive outcome and effects that it has on young people.
Sure.
And I'd have to say, depending on the young people who've worked with us, we have a couple of people who've worked with us for, the longest one at the moment has been with us for 9 years, still remains connected, still comes in to work with us. I mean, obviously he does other things too. And then of course, there are short terms, those who come just for a period of the summer, let's say, but the average stay of a young person entering high school and working with us, I would say, is 2.5 to 3 years. So over time, you'll see it provides just an excellent opportunity for the young people to explore and develop their capacities.
So are you or they, or and they, looking at wellness funds, like ARPA funding and that sort of funding, because that's a large number.
When you say wellness fund, what do you
Yeah.
mean?
Well, there's a great deal of funding going into wellness, the very thing you're describing.
Yeah, there's no question about that. We're I guess I could say generally, we're in process of applying for grant opportunities all the time.
Mhm.
I can't say at the moment, I don't think that there is anything that we have directly coming in terms of wellness funding.
Well, I think you should look at the ARPA, because a great deal of the ARPA funds have not been committed, if you can believe that. People sat on them, and they haven't, till they have about 5 or 6 more months before if they don't dedicate them, they'll be taken back.
The what is the ARPA fund?
That's the federal funding.
You don't mean the American Rescue?
Yeah, the
Oh, yeah.
Rescue Plan Act.
Yeah.
Oh, we've been drawing on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good.
We've been able through the school to draw on those funds for the past 2 years now.
2 years,
And
yeah.
we've been funded significantly, but that brings up the other question that we're facing. Those that funding runs out
Right,
at the end of this year.
right.
And so we have to turn in other directions if we're going to maintain the same level of programming, which we've been able to do. Right now, for the past 2 years, I could say basically we're able to employ kids 8 hours a week to work with us, run the programs 3 days a week. So, yeah, we need to find ways. And that means that we are also turning ourselves more and more in the direction of sustainable funding by being able to charge a fair amount for the projects that we are commissioned to do in the city.
Sure.
That's a word. Pardon?
Paula's raised her hand. She's got a question we want to have.
Oh.
I want to say this, you're actually talking about value creation,
Oh, no question. Yeah.
which is a really great thing, because the rest of it has always been on value extraction. So I'll forward to Paula.
Paula? Okay.
Okay, yeah, you all actually touched on it already. Hello, Bart. Delight to meet you and to hear about the work that you're doing. And Jim already responded much of what I was going to say about the ARPA funding. And I'm so excited that you've been able to access that. You accessed it, I gather, through the city of Detroit.
We access that funding through I'm also the founder of a charter school, although my main work really now is in the Brightmore Makerspace. I'm connected with Detroit Community Schools.
Okay, wonderful,
And
wonderful.
so, yeah, we've been able to tap in through them to the American Rescue Plan funding, which has been really great. And as we all know, just to add, the kids, it's taken them 2.5 years, I would say, to readjust coming off of online learning and so on, which we know was so difficult for so many. The other part I'd like to point out about education at the moment is that we have to really work hard to engage young people's enthusiasm for working and doing other kinds of activities, as opposed to being on the cell phone all the time. And that's hard work in progress, but we have been, hopefully doing that through our hands-on program and the opportunity for kids to engage in another kind of way.
Learn by doing.
As we're talking about that, there's another group of students with whom we work, and that's those who through a traditional brick and mortar did not achieve the opportunity to graduate and are out there but desire to re-engage, to earn their high school diploma. And we have a number of those kids, and maybe we talk offline about that, Monica and Jim, and maybe how we could even engage with Bart on that, because we have a number of students, hundreds of students who may have 14 credits, 16 credits. Young parents were just bullied in school or just stopped out to work full time. And particularly young mothers, not always the fathers, but young mothers who are rearing children and they just need to get back into it. And oftentimes stellar students, good students or decent students, but need that high school diploma. And we work with them so that they can earn that. And I believe that there's an opportunity for ARPA funding that could be utilized in that way as well, because then we can take them to post-secondary engagement and certifications to help them. So that's something else to think about, that in the way of how we can lift up neighborhoods and families.
Oh, that's wonderful what you're doing, because
Wow.
as you well know, even those who make it through high school, when they're 18 and they're out in the world, there's so many young people who are afloat. There are no opportunities. I mean, there are opportunities, but they have not been able to be trained to take up those opportunities that do exist out there. So that's a huge issue. And another reason why we've continued to have young people who, between 18 and 24, to continue to work with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Your program is great to hear. It's so wonderful you're doing that.
Yes, Paula, could you give us like a little bit more of an intro into all that you're doing?
Oh, yes. Yes. We previously were CC. We are now American International Cyber Institute, because we do try to work with international communities as well. We've had a group of students from Romania who, as they settled here, oftentimes the families were more focused on them working than necessarily going to school. But we focus on youth, young adults, and older persons who disengaged in a traditional brick and mortar environment. And then we're able to re-engage with them, provide teachers, tutors to help them earn their high school diploma. We don't offer a GED. We don't disparage a GED. However, we just we're American International Cyber Institute, AICI. And in so doing, we are able, if they are not as equipped in some subject areas, we can offer them that tutoring opportunity. But as we do that, we're able to work with the international school and award their high school diploma. But we're able to work with other school districts. That's why I said we can even work with the community school district, Bart, because we can work through those groups, because so many of these young people come to us. And in order for them to pursue, say, a nursing opportunity, CNA training, if they're lacking that high school diploma, they cannot pursue it. Cosmetology school, they still need to have their high school diploma or GED. And so we want them to not only have their lives transformed, but positively transform the lives for them as well as their families, so that they can be set on a trajectory of success. And we've done it now for upwards of 12 plus years. And we see the difference that's been made. We also once were awarded a 25 plus grant from the state of Michigan, because they really wanted us to work with 25-year-olds plus. And so we even had as many as 30-year-olds who came back and engaged with us. If wherever they have credits we'll go obtain those transcripts so that those credits can be leveraged and not lost. You know, and then from there, they earn the delta in terms of the credits that they're missing.
That's
Wow.
great.
So pathways.
I love that term. Never thought of applying that, but yes, pathways indeed. And pathways, I say with a heart, because we, you know, I always talk about knowledge, skills, and disposition. We love people with a lot of knowledge and we love people with significant skills, but the disposition is essential. So in working with us, one has to have a heart for the individuals whom we serve. And because, you know, we have to have a spirit of, you know, people for some reason didn't make it the first time, but we cannot be condescending. We cannot be diminishing their value. We have to uplift them in what they're trying to achieve.
Powerful message. Powerful message.
Yeah, absolutely.
Message.
That's wonderful.
And we have Jonathan. Jonathan, are you joining us? Are you here?
There he is.
Hi. Could you give us a quick introduction? And
absolutely. I also want to share the representative's apologies. She's having some technical issues, so she asked me to sit in her stead.
Oh,
But my name is Jonathan Wertheimer. I am the Chief of Staff and Policy Director for State Representative Brenda Carter. So we serve the 53rd House District, which encompasses the entire city of Pontiac, Southern Waterford, and Precinct 4 of Auburn Hills, which is the area around Great Lakes Crossing. And we are working at the state level. Oh, I love that. Oh, yes. So in the last budget cycle, I see you have the story there. We were able to get about $85 million back for the district. $50 million of that was for the Oakland County redevelopment. An additional $5 million in that of the $85 million was for some debt relief for downtown. $10 million for the Martin Luther King Bridge, and $2 million for, I want to say, Honor Community Health. I have, ironically enough, I have the poster in my closet right behind me, so I wanted to look at that. But yeah, we are doing what we can to help out the city of Pontiac and the district as a whole to advance kids, bring up that next generation, and get them involved in politics. We find a lot of people they feel disenfranchised, and we're trying to do everything we can to adequately and surpass our representation for the district and just get kids knowledgeable about the political process, how a bill becomes a law, and adults too. You know, I'll talk to anybody. I'll go through the whole pamphlet on how we get a bill from someone's mind to the governor's desk, because boy, let me tell you, that is quite a process that I don't even know all the intricacies of, which is why I have a little pamphlet for it.
we have a pamphlet? Okay.
I'm going to jump up to this really quick and come back. Forgive me, but if I bounce around. But we started out talking about this that published, if you saw in your inbox, this on the Growing Michigan Together Council report. So
Okay.
definitely what we're attempting to frame here is how could we get some new concepts introduced to move this in some fashion that gets everyone happy.
The suggestion here is that it's sitting on the shelf. And of course, we know it's not sitting on the shelf. It's not funded. People don't chase things that aren't funded. But in this particular case, it may be what we're doing as opposed to funding. And that's the case that we're making. We might be doing something different to solve the problem of the disparity in education versus funding the disparity. So we're looking at things like curiosity and imagination and creativity, which are all naturally occurring, but don't ring the bell on the test, teach to test. And one of those is free and one of those is very expensive. So if we look at the total package of educational funding on a yearly basis, do you know what the number is on that, Jonathan?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what the per pupil funding allotment is. I can say we have been trying to tackle quite a bit when it comes to increasing childhood education. So for the city of Pontiac, for example, we forgave about $19 million that the school district owed in debt. So we wiped that out. We made breakfast and lunch free for all students. So that way there was no disparity between the haves and the have-nots. We also adjusted teacher reviews. So that way teachers are not teaching to the test, or at least not teaching to the test as much, because student performance was inadequately weighted to what the teachers were doing. So we changed that up a bit. And if you give me a moment, I can probably find the bill number on that one. But yeah, we're doing everything we can to support students.
Right. What's the yearly budget?
Like the yearly education budget?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get that pulled up. Hold on.
It's like 17 or 15 billion.
It could be. Our overall budget is usually in the $56 billion range.
Right.
The majority of that is taken by Department of Health and Human Services. So I'm not sure if it would be 17 billion, but I can pull the MDE budget really quick.
So we're thinking if the report is somewhat favorable in terms of what it addresses, that it's a significant number if we have to reinvent the process when we're talking billions of dollars yearly. And what we're suggesting is maybe there's a way to reach the desired outcome by what we do and how we do it, which is not about funding, but rather about process. Things like design thinking.
We definitely try to incentivize programs. The governor always says a budget is a list of priorities. And that's definitely what we're trying to do. The hard part when it comes to funding things, and this was the number one thing I took away from my studies when I was in college, was it is so easy to have a goal in mind for a project, whatever that project may be. But the way you structure your funding mechanism can do the opposite of what you want it to do. For example, there was a project that was designed where I think it was during Franklin Delano Roosevelt's tenure. And it was a housing complex for low-income individuals. And basically it put a church, there was a grocery store, the housing for the individuals, it was an entire community all in one. And on its face, that sounds really great, that people could walk to the grocery store, and if they wanted to go to the church, they could go to the church. You know, there was a school, everything was right there. But the problem was there was never a reason for them to leave, and there was never a reason for anyone else to visit. And so it became this horrible situation where anyone who lived there was looked down upon, and it was just not good. And so I think about that when it comes to these programs, because we see it all the time where we try to do something. We have a goal that is really great, but because of the rules and parameters we put around it in an attempt to make it great, we make it worse. And so that's something I always keep in mind when it comes to anything really in the government. But I have my budget briefing pulled up. I'm just seeing if I can find.
You know, that's very interesting what you said, because it sounds a lot like placemaking, which is very big today. maybe we should put that up as a thought bubble.
That's actually a sort of an idea we've been playing with in the poster. I
Yeah.
don't know if you dug into the poster too much, but we had a Kaboom grant that the children designed themselves in Pontiac. It was a small $56K grant for a simple placemaking project at the Hidden River Park. And once the dollars came in,
The program got changed.
yeah, everything changed, and the kids were axed out of the program, of the thing they created and they developed themselves. They even had presented at the Third International Placemaking Week in Chattanooga and stole the show about their, like, how much fun they had over the summer just designing. Because that's the one thing that adults don't really understand, or governance about kids, is that they have fun in the designing process and in the creation process. That's their life. Like they're living for their imagination and curiosity. And so it's very real to them, but it's not so much since we're talking about creativity and innovation today and the need for it. That's just an example we like to draw on, and what would it take to make it actually become the thing that it was supposed to be from the beginning? And it seems like you've got your curiosity triggered about that, Jonathan, and you're on the hunt for that kind of solution. Does that sound similar? Similar problem?
I would say so. It's engagement, and it isn't just kids, you know, it's engaging adults, it's engaging seniors, because when it comes to government, more than anything, that is what is actively in everyone's life, whether they realize it or not. And when someone's not engaged in government, and that isn't just, you know, whether someone votes or not, that's going to city council, understanding the ordinances and the laws that govern their property, and, you know, speed limits, for example, you know, it's as we can talk as minute as speed limits, but being engaged in that protects the individual, because then they know what they should and should not be doing based on the guidelines of the that are set for them. And so when someone's really engaged, it allows them to advocate more accurately for themselves on what they're trying to do, and also just protect themselves in terms of understanding what they can and can't be doing. And I did find our per pupil funding. So it's just shy, that's the word I'm looking for. Just shy of $10,000 per student for the 2023-2024 school year, $9,600. An increase of $458 from the previous year.
Well, that's an interesting number. I wonder what the total budget is.
Well, I pulled the MDE budget, and that's where I don't think it is in the MDE budget after reviewing it, because our MDE budget is $420 million. And that doesn't seem like it would be enough to contain this fund.
That would just take care of Oakland schools.
Pretty much. But here, let me get this in the chat if I can figure out how to get the video to come back to me. There we go. That has the per pupil funding in it.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
I love Bridge Magazine. They do a great job.
We agree.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out which budget we're pulling that from. But that I can do on the side here. We're also looking at $66.4 million for teacher recruitment, training, and retention. But
Wow. Any feedback from our guests? We have the other side of that, and the experiential and the implementation space. represented here with Bart Eddy and Dr. Paula Whitaker-Watkins.
Of course, one of the things I wanted to share, thank you, Jonathan, for your insight in those areas. I wanted to say that I failed to say is that we place a strong emphasis on civic literacy as we re-engage young people and older adults, because we want them to not only register to vote, we of course are not telling them how to vote, but we want them to register. We want them to gain knowledge around where they go to vote, the polling information, who currently represents them, and how they can even further their knowledge by, as you even mentioned, going to city council meeting or district or area meetings with their representatives. And then watching the news, different news media outlets, or taking it in and evaluating that, writing a reflective paper on that so that they are gaining knowledge in that way to become good civic citizens, as well as digital literacy. So we put some emphasis on that because there's a need in much of the communities that many of the communities we support to bridge that digital divide. Hence, one of the pieces and work I came to be known to Monica and Jim is around Connect 313 in Detroit. And as we were talking, looking at even discussing that in the Pontiac community, but bridging that digital divide, because once again, COVID happened and people needed devices to actually have telehealth, healthcare, appointments. And some of them might have had devices because then their children started coming home with Chromebooks, but they didn't know how to use software. It wasn't intuitive enough to help them do that, you see. And so sometimes, because they know how to use phones doesn't mean that that's automatically translates into using various IT systems. But by all means, I'm appreciative of what Jonathan has shared, because it makes you think about how the funding is allocated, what's the innovation around funding opportunities for those who are not necessarily served or underserved in terms of utilization of those funds as well.
If I could jump in just real quick, I wanted to say, as we're talking about different ways to engage the kids, you reminded me of a couple of booklets I have, and if you want them, I can send them to you free of charge. One of them is a student's guide to the legislative process. And the other one, you were mentioning explaining to kids who their representatives are. I do have citizen guides that have all of the representatives and senators at the state and federal level. So if you would like some copies of those booklets, I'd be more than happy to send them to you.
That'd be awesome.
So I'm going to drop.
Very cool.
I'll drop my contact info in the chat. I'll also send you the virtual copies of those booklets in the chat. Just send me an email with how many you would like and the address to send them, and we'll get them to you.
Super.
Beautiful.
If we continue this conversation with 313 into the 248 area code, we'd sure like to talk more deeply about that.
Oh, I do have to say, if I'm sending booklets, though, it has to be in District 53. If it's outside of the district, I can talk with the representative.
Okay.
Okay.
Always my disclaimer.
Well, you have a large brush, okay? So we got little paintbrushes here. The Flint water crisis is another thing that we're dealing with from an educational point of view, and we're attempting to bring that into a discussion as well. And we've been working with them for a couple of years. In fact, I've been in Flint. I got a grant for $5 million from Pontiac Schools in Flint at the Mott Foundation a couple of decades ago. But we're really interested in this as a piece of appropriate, intentional, human crisis in terms of how it's still going on and not abated. We're wondering what can be done, if anything, to have young people begin to understand the environment that they inhabit.
We're working, just to add a little more to that, we're working with the team. There's a documentary film in the making called No Town. And for UN World Cities Day, we facilitated that team. And they're following the story of Melissa Mays, and you may know her. She's a prominent activist there and works for Flint Rising. And so we're thinking through, like, how does human-centered design, which is what we're doing today, facilitating, how do we come up with something new together? And how might the art of documentary storytelling and the writing, the thinking through from a human-centered designs based on empathy, compassion, storytelling. So what is it that those writers and documentary storytellers might convey to kids in helping them become a little more place-based in their own education pursuits? Is that anything, Jonathan, at the state that is a hot button?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I was pulling up those booklets and jumped in a little late there.
That's okay.
Just the Flint water crisis, we're doing something around that, and we're wondering if there's still any air left in the governance for that kind of conversation.
There definitely is from the prevention side. I would have to defer to the Attorney General's office on the charges, but I think they've dropped most of them. But there's been some funding for, go ahead.
Yeah, we're moving on to the education of what took place rather than the who blames who moment, okay? The kids that are there need to become aware of the situation that they face.
From
jump in
educational
for a moment?
component.
Like from a
Go for it.
place-based education perspective, that they'd be learning about their environment, maybe taking roles in
Prevention.
and action and helping solve problems that are still there. Bart,
Yeah, could I just mention our water trike here for a moment as one example?
yes.
Yeah.
So we had an opportunity to right in the midst of when the fires were really burning in the Flint water crisis and so on, and also which is connected with all of the water shutoffs in Detroit as well. We decided, well, we can go into action ourselves and give the kids agency as to what was really going on and possible ways to solve that. So we together collectively invented a water purification motorized bike to collect rainwater coming off a rooftop and putting it through a purification system, which was on a mobile bike, with just the idea behind it that we could distribute purified bottles, gallons of water to people, as a, for instance, who were coming to a food pantry to pick up food or whatever. But really the value of that entire experience was the opportunity to talk about the water crisis, to talk about the effects of lead poisoning and so on and so forth, and giving our students the sense that instead of waiting for the legislature or whatever, anyone to do something, we could find a way to do something immediately, even as small as it was. Yeah, so that's our water trike there. We also made stationary water purification units, which were tested and proved to be effective, actually.
Wow,
Well,
that's so cool.
That's so cool and such an advocacy, okay? And I think that needs to be continued. I mean, the process now supersedes the legislation.
So that's an example of innovation and creativity put to solving a problem.
Yeah,
What if-
it engaged all of our programs in that. It engaged our gardeners, our shirt designers, our woodworkers, and our bike mechanics. So we all worked together on that. Really a fun project to do.
That is so cool.
In a way, now we are turning, and particularly in Detroit, a lot of our attention is working with the community groups that are engaged in land rehabilitation. And as you probably know, in Detroit at the moment, there's a lot of discussion going on about water runoffs and so on and so forth. And you know, making sort of garden-oriented collection systems for that excess rainwater.
Wow. It's like a holistic approach.
Yeah, right. More of that.
More of that. Do we have any, Jonathan, are you aware of any other maker spaces operating in K through 12 environments in the state?
Maker spaces. I am not off the top of my head, I would say.
Is that something we might explore?
I mean, we're open to exploring anything.
Okay.
And as it comes to education related to Flint, it's definitely something kids need to know about, obviously. Especially if they're in Flint, it's part of their local history and it's still ongoing, which is the hard part. We don't usually, especially with Carter's office, like mandate educational standards. We let the MDE come up with kind of their thing, and then the individual school districts implement it. But if there is a path statutorily that we need to look at, we can always do that as well.
That's what we're looking for.
Statutory.
I like the way you think.
Yeah.
We need to figure out what the loopholes are. Not loopholes, that's not the right word. Pathways, right, Paula?
You know what? I was going to use your term. I was really thinking about that.
So here's the thing with requiring school districts to do anything. In Michigan, we have the lovely Headley and Prop A amendments, which is in the Constitution for our state. And at the time, they fixed a problem of funding disparity in, so cities like Pontiac versus cities like Berkeley or West Bloomfield, for example. The funding disparities were quite stark, or like rural northern Michigan, where they had a huge or didn't have a huge property tax base. So Headley and Prop A took care of that. The problem with Headley and Prop A when it comes to requiring school districts to do things is if we do that, we have to fully fund it, or we make it like an opt-in grant program, and then the school districts can decide if they want to do it, essentially. So it can be a little difficult in terms of requiring something to be done. We ran into that with a panic alarm system that Rep. Carter is working on. So we tied an appropriation with it in order to avoid problems with the Constitution. But that I just wanted to flag the Headley and Prop A situation we have. If anyone has a fix for Headley and Prop A, I would love it. It's been the problem in Lansing for a better part of a decade.
Yeah. Well, that's what we were thinking. Growing Michigan might.
I believe Growing Michigan offers an opportunity for that kind of investigation. There's an interesting thing that's happened in terms of value creation. versus value extraction. And it is at the base of all creativity and imagination. And that now is a recognized process as we look at capitalism in the way in which it's exhausted itself. And it's, I think, at the core of how we readdress and reimagine our educational system. And it's why I was making a case about curiosity and imagination, which is a natural state of being. You know, we kind of got away from it with the industrialized proposition, and it unfortunately has exhausted itself. And in this state in particular, it's a big challenge, probably the biggest challenge we have. How do we continue to be successful in a world that is quickly competing with what has kept us a middle class beacon, and it's moving the wrong way. So if we're going to keep kids in Michigan, we've got to move in another direction and move quickly. They've already voted, they've left, which is really at the heart of that particular conversation.
It really is, and that's a really hard nut to crack. The last thing we want is for kids to get left behind, because they vote with their feet, like you were saying, and they are finding more opportunities outside of the state. For Texas, I'm hearing, is where a lot of our bleed is going, ironically enough. But it is a difficult situation there. I mean, it's why I'm in Oakland County. I grew up in Manistee County and I was looking around going, okay, I need to figure out how I'm going to live my life, essentially. And the economic opportunities for me to be able to do that were in Oakland County. And I'm glad I was able to find them here. But it would have been great to be able to find some of those same opportunities in Manistee County. And that's a problem experienced statewide, where people are finding those opportunities outside of the state. So right now, especially Governor Whitmer is putting an emphasis on trying to find ways to not only retain the talent that we have here in Michigan, but we want to beef up that talent with the different initiatives for, like Oakland 80, for example. 80% of individuals with post-secondary degree or certification, and then but also attract that talent from other states, and so we're getting more people that way. And so that, if you can crack that nut, I would take it. I would love to have that policy.
So for several decades, technology has been that proposition. Unfortunately, in the state of Michigan, it all went to automotive, and the world is a much larger proposition. And we haven't been. I got funded in the 80s for a couple of $1 million from the MEDC for technology that was not automotive. If I'd have been doing a button on a car door, I could have gotten 20 or 30 million dollars, but instead it was just high tech in the printing industry, in a transition that eliminated ultimately the printing industry for all intents and purposes. And in that, I think, is a great story. We have now reached another moment, much like the 80s and 90s were in technology, and we've reached it with AI and how we're going to apply that in a certain fashion. So it's like the second coming of that. I hope we do better in Michigan with that than we did then without that.
I think that you all are onto something, though, again, that this moment in time, for such a time as this, we need to merge the technology with the innovation in education to achieve in that area of retaining and attracting are the two that are named, but I maintain we need to add the term building, because they're individuals. I go back to our target demographics. There are young people who stopped out of school, old, a little bit older, younger adults, older adults who stopped out of school, did not achieve a post-secondary education or a degree, not because they didn't have the wherewithal, you see, but because of life happened.
Mhm.
As the young people say, life happened. So I think we need to add that other term there. I'm not the governor, you're not a mover and shaker. Just, I'm glad you all know me and thankful for this opportunity. But I truly believe we have to add another verb there, building, because we can build in place with many of the people we have if we have some funding to do that with these people of hope. Because oftentimes they're called at-risk kids. I don't call them at risk. I call them at hope.
That's
Wow.
awesome. That's
I love
awesome.
that.
What a message. What a message. That's why we're here today.
Yes.
You're really hitting that nail on the head there, with especially with the life gets in the way part of it, because that is a lot or a large part of the Oakland 80 like target group. It's people who are coming into it. So, you know, your 18-year-olds who are going to be going on. But a lot of it are people. I was at the state of the county address, and there was a gentleman, I want to say he was in his 70s or 80s, who for years wanted to get his associate's degree from OCC, but he went into the military, and you know, life happened. And so he finally went back. He called up Oakland 80 and was like, hey, how can I do this? And it turned out his military service was able to count towards his credit, and he is going to be, you know, graduating, I want to say in May. So helping individuals who have had life get in the way is really a huge, huge part of getting us to that Oakland 80 goal, but also the statewide goal, which I want to say is Oakland County is at like 65% or 67%. So I want to say it was like a 70% thing. But it definitely, it's figuring out how to get those individuals who have some credit, you know, who started that journey, but life got in the way. And so trying to figure out how to help them finish that.
Well, that's a core element of our efforts. So
Yes.
I will tell you that we have 30 such young ladies right now in Pontiac who are poised and knocking at our door for that. 30 in Pontiac.
wow.
Wow.
And that's just immediate need, but we don't have the funding for them. And, you know, we want to help them. We're trying to get the funding. We're trying to make certain we can pay our resources to do the work with them, to tutor them, to help them. But
Wow.
and that's just one group.
Yeah, maybe we
Could we maybe explore a pilot project with the 30 in Pontiac? In between Detroit and Pontiac for a growing Michigan together?
I would love that.
experiment.
Who
Yeah.
needs to answer that question? I already am on board, but I mean,
Well, we know that we're doers together, so we're just gonna do
We
it,
can just go
Paula.
ahead, okay?
And what I can say on the funding piece is send my office a proposal.
Okay.
When it comes to grant, well, it's technically an enhancement grant, but it's a state appropriation. So if you are able to get it, you fill out an application for it, but it's more of an agreement between you and whichever state department or subgroup is in charge of the mess that is appropriations. But all I need is a number and a justification for the number. So if you want $10 million, tell me why you need $10 million. If you want $10,000, tell me why you need $10,000. And I will tell every single applicant. Say again?
We like the way Jonathan thinks.
Well, for me, a number is a number, and we just have to take the applications we receive and prioritize them based on, you know, where the representative is at and where the other representatives are at. But the thing that I tell everybody, I tell them two things. One, if I don't get a proposal, I can't advocate for the proposal. And number two, always, when it comes to that proposal, err on the side of asking for more money. Because at the state, we're never gonna go up with the amount you're awarded. It only goes down from whatever number you ask for. So just justify whatever you need and then maybe go a little more for some cushion there. That's what I would say.
Okay.
So I have a
Does
question
this,
there. I have a
just a
question.
And Bart's in the program, in our project as well.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to
We'll
make
be-
certain.
We'll be
that-
collaborating.
does this apply to Detroit as well? Or would we have to talk to another representative office or whatever?
Right. So by and large, we relate our appropriations back to the district. So the Oakland County projects in downtown Pontiac, the Martin Luther King Bridge is in southern Pontiac. So if it's outside of House District 53, what we would do, you can still send it to my office. I'm always happy to look at a budget proposal. But what we would do is figure out exactly where those dollars are going to be allocated. So if it's Detroit, for example, there's 10 different representatives from Detroit. We would take your home base address essentially, and then just send it to that representative and say, hey, we got this proposal from your district. Here's their appropriation proposal, and do with it as you would for the other appropriations your office receives.
Good, thank you.
But that wouldn't preclude us, would it, from, let's say we have this Pontiac group, but it
Okay.
would not preclude us from District 53 from working with Bart and Monica and Jim because they're located in Pontiac, in Detroit, would it? Are we able to collaborate across district lines? I mean, the people we're serving would be out of Pontiac, but would that be sufficient, or how does that work?
We still operate in Pontiac.
We operate in Pontiac as well, and this platform we're deploying, that's sort of our contribution. Of course, it's technology, so would we be rethinking this? It can go anywhere.
Yeah, you can definitely work with anyone. The only thing for our office in terms of our appropriation request is where are the dollars going to physically go? The representative tends to open it up. So you're serving 30 individuals from Pontiac, for example. Your home base might be outside of Pontiac, but the individuals you're serving are from Pontiac. So the representative also takes that into account. And in those instances, what we would do is we would look at the representative for your home base, so the home base of your group. And we would say, hey, Representative McFall comes to mind. I was just talking about McFall with somebody. So Representative Mike McFall. There is a group that's based in your district, but they're serving people from our district. Do you maybe want to talk a little bit about their $500,000 appropriation request to get this off the ground? And then he would say, yes or no, and we would just collaborate there. So I say the more people you work with to make your proposal as robust as possible, the better it is for your proposal. So talk with anybody as far as I'm concerned.
Beautiful. And what was the process again, Jonathan? You said what you needed. You started to say, I think we moved away from it, like exactly what you need.
Oh yeah. A lot of people when they come to my office for appropriations, they are almost scared. They're a little intimidated of like the grant proposal process because they're used to like state grant proposal things where there's a lot of requirements, a lot of, red tape. With our office, I like to think it's one of the easiest grant proposals you could ever write because all I need is a number.
Right.
And the reason for the number.
Okay.
And
I thought there might be more, but
the title of the plot.
Okay.
It's really
Beautiful.
easy. I need a number. And who it's going to, you know, who it's
Uh-huh.
going to in your project, I suppose. But as long as you can justify however much you need, you can ask for any dollar amount. I can say the smaller the dollar amount, the more likely you are to be able to get it. But at the end of the day, whatever amount of money you need for your project is the amount of money you need for your project. So it's really easy. Just a number, why you need it. And probably the group name would be helpful, I would imagine. But you know, we can
Beautiful.
always request more information if the appropriations chair needs it.
We're going to call it something around the regional collaboratory or something like that. Regional Innovation District Collaboratory.
I like it.
The purpose of our efforting starts today at 3 o'clock when we're concluding here and runs for a year with the World Creativity and Innovation Day leadership. They're quite taken with the possibilities that that represents. And the reason I mention this is because we have this platform that the UN has provided for all of the creatives around the entire world, which we're going to bring to focus on this process. So it's not just our understanding, but rather various organizations from around the world as part of this platform. So we're going to include that as part of our description of what we're doing, so that we get a full understanding of the impact and the way in which we're going to draft talent.
Anybody?
I would like to just ask for clarification. Is this part of the design cities piece that's throughout the world, and Detroit is considered a city of design? I think the only one in the US, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
design core.
Design
And
Core,
core. That I couldn't think
Yeah.
of that. Thank you. Thank you. Mhm.
they manage that program, and I'm glad that you brought that up because we are going to be, the deadline to submit for Detroit Month of Design is tonight. And we're going to submit.
Yeah, well, we submitted last year and we had an event, parking day, down on 14th Street on Michigan Avenue at Metropolis Bikes, and we'll be doing and repeating that again. And Bart was involved in that last year. It's going to be much larger this year because, quite frankly, they're opening the doors to the Michigan Central Station, which is right on the corner there. So we're really excited about that opportunity, and we've been spending a lot of time with the folks over at the Book Depository, which is the operational new lab part of the proposition that's unfolding. And you know, Bill Ford was in the paper this morning as well, making the case for the automotive side of things, as well as the mobility side, as well as the new technology side, new lab, and so forth and so on. So it's just a timely moment where we're watching the General Motors proposition shift gears, and we're watching Ford move mountains, in my opinion. I mean, they're doing some really wonderful things there, and I think the efforting is going to pay off. If you talk about attracting talent, that's the kind of thing that can attract talent. And it's the new talent, not necessarily the old talent. And even though that's under the guise of we're going to create the EVs and the mobility of the future and so forth and so on, it's a new kind of approach to automotive that they're looking to move. And in moving that dimension, I think they're onto the right thing. And Bill Ford, in this conversation or in this piece in the article this morning, knows that it's not an automatic slam dunk EVs. It's not an automatic slam dunk for Ford. It's a situation that is mobile and it's moving and it's not so one might imagine just because I have the dollars that I can, make this technology perform in a fashion that is attractive. And it's in a bit of a situation where it finds itself in the right place at the right time, but is it the right thing? And you got to have all three. And that's the one little lesson I learned over the last 50 years is you got to have all three at the same time. Usually we get two. So any other thoughts along those lines, Jonathan, in Detroit? What's and I know the governor's been here a number of times, more recently on behalf of Ford Motor Company, and then more recently than that on behalf of General Motors. So there must be a lot of discussion going on along those lines. And I think K-12 education has a huge role to play in this environment. It needs to find itself working in tandem, which is what I think is necessary for the Growing Michigan Together platform to really take off. We'd sure like to think that is so.
It's always interesting trying to. So the hard part here is figuring out what we need to do to get the kids prepared for that next step, for the future technology. And we would love in Michigan to have it be related to the auto industry. And to an extent it is. I mean, we're bringing in a battery plant, the old, it's a train station in Detroit. It's now a Ford battery or a Ford electric vehicle plant with an electric road in front of it, which, by the way, I love electric roads more than anything in the world, I think.
It's
They are so neat.
It's Michigan Central.
Say again?
It's Michigan Central train station.
Yes.
Yeah, for our parking day, we had Michelle Mueller from MDOT, and she's running that project. And she was going to participate in our parking day, but it was right before the auto show.
Yeah, that's the electrical road piece, which is like 3 blocks long.
14th Street. That's the corner where Metropolis Cycles is, where we were set up for a pop-up. And then they're also redesigning Michigan Avenue, the mobility innovation corridor. And we think doing that engagement work that you were talking about earlier and is really important. And the bike shop guys you'll never find them at any kind of public involvement meeting, but they have a lot to say about design, and that's sort of the kind of design that we do. It's not like a top-down thing, it's bottom up. So you're gathering input from the people who are most knowledgeable about the subject. So around bike lanes, and you want to talk to the bike guys.
We'll see you there on June 6th.
Yeah.
When they open the doors at Michigan Central.
Ooh, that is the date. Let me write that down.
That is the date.
It's the date.
And
then that would be, then September would be rolling into Detroit Month of Design and Parking Day, which I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Parking Day. That is another worldwide event, and people all over the country, all over the world, take over parking spots and make them into public places as an advocacy tool for saying we want walkable cities, at least somewhere, make the place interesting and cater to the walking culture versus the car domination.
it's definitely one of my goals for Waterford.
There you go.
I bet. What's it like there? What do you have, like a little center that you, or any kind of?
We did 6 parking days in Pontiac.
There's nowhere that
See,
the
Pontiac,
track.
Yeah, Pontiac's great because it has its historic downtown. And it's one of those things where I think we really need to look to the past to help out with the present and future, because that historic downtown that Pontiac has really is that walkable area that have, well, the parking deck's a different situation, but it is walkable. You can go from, the Strand Theater to the Liberties down there, or the gym, or maybe one day a boutique clothing store. It's all there, and that's where Waterford can use a little advice and help. Even Auburn Hills has built their own downtown walkable area with the different parks and what have you. But I do see Dr. Whitaker Watkins had her
Yes.
hand up for a minute.
Okay, I'm taking copious notes and listening is no problem. I don't want you to lose your train of thought, Jonathan. I was just thinking in terms of, again, going back to education, Jim's question a while back was, as we're looking at that, Paramount is, I think it's an extension of what Bart has done around Makerspace, but preparing youth and young adults for EV battery jobs, you see. And I just was with a young man who went through the Goldman Sachs program, he's one of the few who handles infusion of gas, the natural gas, that, might be limited in terms of what we do, for utilities, but then also walkable area type of jobs. Will there be more, drones surveying the areas? And so we need youth, young adults to have their drone pilot license, 3D printing certification type of thing. So, and then I think about the climate space and the need for healthcare type of readiness, for jobs. So that, to me, the education piece around the innovation of getting them prepared to live in these spaces, right?
That's beautiful.
Awesome, Paula, you just killed it.
It is
You
so
just killed it.
right on, yeah. And what we've discovered in running place-based pilots is that kids are better placemakers
Yeah.
than
Than the adults.
administrators, I'll say, and not just any adults, but
If you're talking about the future, you better build a place for them or they won't be there. It's a human experience. You either get that or you don't get that. You don't get that, you don't live there.
My young adults who are now 32, 31, and 30, I was old and then had them all at one time, but Irish, as they say. But they used to say, you watch the TV shows and there's always a teen gathering place. But in real life, there was no teen gathering space. We did have Youthville for a while in Detroit, and my kids were members there and did go. But, in this place-based space, the walkable community, there needs to be a place for the youth, that provides that environment. And I'll give you another example. We lived in Germany for about 3.5 years and worked there for EDS and General Motors, my husband and I, and our community was so walkable, not just for us, but for the children, as you say, the youth need to be involved in, and the young people, like as Jonathan was saying, it needs to be walkable. That's for health as well as for community, right? Not to keep people out and not to isolate people, not to build silos, but so that people, we can gather.
that's beautiful.
Work
Gathering.
from home has completely, shattered our illusions about how the world of work is operating. And we need to look at that as a urbanist, and certainly as a city, and as a wayfinding place. This is not 1950 in retail. This is a whole different story. And where we will find the most answers, I think, are with young people. because it's awful difficult to recognize something you haven't experienced. And young people are the wayfinders. We need to be paying attention to them deeply and helping them understand their role in their community.
Well, that brings up a larger question here for everyone, and this has to do with the some of a major dilemma in the present day educational system. And this is a dilemma that is not only impacts Oakland County, Pontiac, Detroit, it's impacting everywhere at the moment. We've seen the growth of a terrific growth in student absenteeism. It began really before the pandemic, increased exponentially during the pandemic, and has persisted in being a problem since then. And I'm wondering what you all think as to the reason, why is this happening? Why are young people making the choice not to go to school? What is the issue there? I mean, I have my own thoughts on this, but I wanted to ask you all what you think, because this is an enormous, huge problem.
We've got thoughts on that. We'd love to hear everyone else's first. We could go off forever, but.
Well, I'll posit one, social media is brutal. I'll posit another. They learned something that may have missed everyone in the pandemic. And that is, a lot of parents found out about the lack of, let's say, direction of their traditional education system. I mean, we hear it all the time, education has got a real problem. How about your kids, where they go? Oh, it's fine, it's great. Those two answers can't be true at the same time. And in that, the execution on behalf of technology was abysmal. The thought was that they'd been going along with technology in education, and the fact was, when they come in and they had to perform in such, it was horrible. Somehow the parents have been okay with, the lack of their young people positioning in how they have walked backwards away from traditional education. I don't know what the foundation, I'm not in the classroom, so I don't have any idea what those elements may be, but the parents have allowed the kids some latitude. And again, the social media thing is absolutely brutal. I mean, you got immature people with very sophisticated toys, and well, they're immature, and that's the whole point of education, is to attempt to prepare them for the adult world. Your thoughts?
Mine lie more around the, I think we tried to transfer, I think that the industrial era model has caused so much damage, the telling, the standardized testing, and over time, and then COVID exploded, and kids have been using those tools, but they're using them, their curiosity isn't sparked necessarily by someone telling them things over. We didn't shift from a telling model to an asking, inquiry-based, exploration-based model that a number of us have been, chasing for decades now. Jim, long time, but I couldn't believe that it seemed like when the pandemic happened, there was an explosion of all these think pieces. Now's the time to change education and transform and adopt technology in a healthy way. But it seems like we've just memory holed all of that conversation, and that, and then the technology became the thing that got scapegoated. And we do have all of those problems with social media, but there are other uses for technology. And I just don't think that our system was prepared for that conversation and didn't use the time to reinvent. And now we're stuck. We're wanting to get them all back to school, and they're not being attracted. I think it's just run its course, and we don't really have a process that has inserted itself as the right alternative yet.
Even higher education is experiencing a wake-up call. So it's not unique to K-12. That's the breeding ground, and it's evolved into the higher education as a adjunct to some of the way in which technology is being applied in the gig economy and so forth and so on. That's almost a shadow economy.
It definitely is an interesting question. And I think part of it could just be a hopelessness is not exactly the word I'm looking for, but it's like the jobs out there that make the big bucks, they're technology based. And there's programming that one needs to know how to do, or specific design of the computer itself or the systems within it. And I think possibly what could be part of the problem is some students see the education they're getting and they're having a hard time correlating the purpose of it to the job that is there that we're pushing them to. So we're telling them, get a job in technology, go into programming, but they're, cutting apart a deer heart or dissecting a frog, and they're having a hard time seeing the correlation there. Now, there's a value in everything they're learning, of course, but they're looking at it and they're going, how is this going to serve me in my job? And I think maybe we could do a better job at tailoring it and looking at what the kids need and what the kids want to learn for the life that they want to live. Maybe that could be part of the solution there.
That's a great point.
Just to,
Perfect.
like to add to that not only should we be looking toward the engaging model of technology and so on and so forth, but over the course of the last couple of decades, maybe even longer than that now, we've turned away from the trades and a true hands-on education. I'm going to say that if you bring a child, a young person up with a holistic education, it really means that you are educating the head, heart, and hands. And, unfortunately, the heart and the hands seem to be considered to be frivolous in regard to education. And you can see this by the over-reliance. I'm not going to say all of it is bad, but on the over-reliance of standardized testing to measure who that child is, it gives a very incomplete and an unjust picture of that. So, I think that something that would help, of course, I'm alluding to a holistic model, such as something that the Waldorf schools have done, which is a private school system, but nevertheless internationally prominent.
Absolutely. I mean, the head and the heart are a big piece of the equation. Toys in technology are interesting things.
Now, can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Please.
I want to say that, the young people that we've been meeting, and I'm not talking about in the last month or two, I'm talking about for years now, are not prepared yet for the quote unquote world of work. You have to start from square one. So much of education towards that world of work begins right in the early years of the home life. And when a child has to do chores around the house or whatever, and I know some still do, of course, but those things are important. So if young people have not had an opportunity to connect with work themselves, actually do work, you don't go to school for 18 years and then start to work, to be expected to go out into the workforce. Or you'll find what often happens now, oh, yes, I want to be an apprentice carpenter, or, oh, I want to enter the technology field. Out they go. They're there for a couple of months and they're gone. They're young people. They still have other interests that they want to explore, and they're not ready to make what would, not all of them, I'm going to say, but a lot of them are not ready to make that kind of commitment that the adults are talking about in this day and age. It's our conception of who we think they should be at this time. Well, what about the voice of the young people? So it just, in one way that we certainly are addressing this, we don't get buttonholed in the Makerspace program of saying that we are training young people to work. And this is the work that they're going to do because we've given them a carpentry program. No, they're going to make that choice farther down the way. If anything, I would say, in essence, what we are working with are a pre-apprenticeship kind of program. And this is with the basics, really simple things. Hey, if you're not going to show up to work today, please at least let us know before work begins. Don't tell me when you wake up at 11:30 in the morning that you won't be able to make it today. Well, we're glad to hear from you, but yeah, let us know. So these really, these are, in a way, dealing with some of the simplest matters, but how long would you last in the world of work and a major job in the technology industry if, couldn't show up for work in time today, overslept? Uh,
Yes.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
that's maybe putting it extreme, but we know that that's there, and that's starting right on the ground floor and
Right.
asking themselves, who are our young people? Well, let's hear from them.
Mhm.
And so we've done a lot of time with that, which leads into another thing as way to answer this, I think, question of absenteeism. And another problem for education at the moment, and that is the revolving door of educators, of teachers. We, as a charter school in Detroit, have certainly experienced that. Here today, gone tomorrow. Young people grow up in neighborhoods which have been neglected and abandoned, and not by the fault of their parents or anyone else. We all know that. So they go through this, and they are really keyed into this whole idea of trust and abandonment, if you will. Oh, am I going to be abandoned by then this new teacher that seems to be maybe interesting for a moment or two? How long will they be here? They don't trust that. There isn't longevity, maybe in the way it used to be, a teacher who's committed for, they're going to be there for 30 years, right? No.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is
Art,
so-
that is so where the game is. Okay, I mean, if you don't have that, you don't have anything to build on. It's just,
Mhm.
No. And what you have to build on in this situation is you have because the young people, let me tell you, and I'm sure you know this, Dr. Paula, They are smart. They are artistic. They are innovative. They are creative, but they've had literally no opportunity in the present educational system and the forms that have been created for them to learn to be able to express that. And so what do you get? You get over socialization in the school, and you get disruptive and negative behavior. When a kid is involved in a creative way and they're filled with that, with the new and awakening ability to be creative, you are not going to find violent and negative situations happening in a forum such as that. Why? Because they're engaged.
Mhm. I think and you all have hit on some very important aspects, because one, when we talk about the absenteeism, to go back to that question, think about it. The parents are allowing that absenteeism oftentimes. I won't say 100%, because sometimes parents go to work and they don't know the
Right.
kids went to school, didn't go to school. But sometimes parents know the kids aren't going to school, and they are authenticating that
Mhm.
type of action, right?
Yep.
That's one aspect of it, but you're right. The students, I think Jonathan brought that up. Students are, the lack of interest, and you were talking about that, Bart, and I wholeheartedly agree. And for a long time, I know I taught this, because we had to teach this pedagogy. We always taught pedagogy, pedagogy, pedagogical theory, and that sort of thing. But I have maintained that to a certain degree, because so many of our young people are given adult roles. When the parents are gone to work, they're at home taking care of the younger siblings, the cousins,
Absolutely.
the cooking, they're doing the clothes, they're making certain they're ready to go to school the next day, that we have to apply some aspects of andragogy or adult learning theory. And we are not ready for that in these United States. We still apply pedagogy. Sometimes even in higher ed, we're talking about pedagogy. And I'm like, whoa, we're dealing with adults here.
Mhm.
Yet when we get into professional development environments, we are applying adult learning theory. But we have youth and young babies sometimes who are playing out adult roles. And so I think we have to meet them, as you said, Bart, where they are. We have to hear their voices, what did Monica captured, an agency, right?
Right.
So that and that trust. Oh, now I have a whole long litany that we could discuss about that revolving door of educators and how we can build that. Because I grew up, my, let me just tell a quick family story. My great-grandmother, who I knew as a child, was an enslaved person. So I knew her as a child, but she could read and write. An interesting story is that two of the plantation slave owners' sons married two of her sisters legally. And so our family actually had the opportunity for education from years and years and years ago. To that end, my grandfather was a teacher, trained to be a teacher. And so you had this longevity of education and interest in education. And so communities were built around people who wanted to educate young
Yeah.
people.
Mhm.
Now, I have a theory around how we can build that community again too.
Beautiful.
But again, it takes resources. But I have some thoughts around that, how we can build a community of people who want to educate, but we have to be committed to it.
Well, we'll make sure this gets into the grant ask with Jonathan.
Yes, and Paula, could you said in the other meeting we were in for Connect 313, you mentioned your daughter is running the Black Bottom archives.
Well, she's given that up. She actually founded Black Bottom Archives. Marcia Black runs it now.
Okay.
My daughter PG Watkins founded it and started that whole notion of capturing that history. And while she was post-grad student out in DC and came up with that concept and came back home and started it. But I can get you in touch with Marcia if you don't know her already. because Marcia, she hired Marcia to replace her, and she is a grad student with, she obtained her graduate degree in archiving and library science from the University of Texas. So that's who, PG's grad degree is from the School of Architecture at University of Detroit. So that's our younger daughter, yes. And I can definitely connect you with them.
Beautiful.
Well, that is something that goes to something we did last year with the Better City Film Festival. And we did the Black Bottom with Mama Raven and CNU, Congressman
Okay.
Newman's
Okay, yes.
presentation. So, and I still follow, I joined their newsletter, so I get their information. It's off the charts, that
Isn't-
process.
Yes. Yes, I'm so
So
proud, so proud. She ran the AMP Film Festival for a while too. They did. So I can definitely connect you if you're not already connected, but you receive the newsletter is the first part. Bart, I think you would enjoy that newsletter too, about the work they're doing, capturing the
yeah.
story.
I believe we have the makings of a grant here, okay, that I think Jonathan will have a hard time dismissing. Okay. Okay, and I don't think it has to be deep and wide. There's so many key elements here that just can't be denied. This isn't a one-dimensional kind of ask. This is a multi-dimensional ask, because that's what's necessary if you're going to have a solution. You know, you can paint a picture with one color, but I think this needs to be much richer and much wider. And we have the capacity to do that. And the timing's right. I mean, you know, the one thing is we're not making the case about reinventing education. The state of Michigan is. What they've run across is that some people have been working on this for quite a while.
Yeah, Jim, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but let me go ahead and throw out part of my concept around building the community of educators.
Great.
Okay, I'll just throw this out because it may involve us putting this into the grant. I wasn't thinking like that at first. But I think I should throw it out in the conversation so you all can say yay or nay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
part of building that community of educators, Bart, comes from, as I say, that long standing community of people who want to educate some of our urban youth. And are you familiar with HBCUs?
Yes.
And therein you find at some of the smaller institutions in particular, people who are dedicated to the notion of helping others. So I think we should, as part of this, not only look at recruiting from there, but also defining something we called EHBCU. My husband actually formulated that terminology, EHBCU, so that we can leverage the expertise, because many of those institutions don't have every major, you see. So you have to know how to navigate where they have it and where they do not.
Mm-hmm.
But one summer, we spent the summer going around the South, meeting with the presidents of colleges, HBCUs in the South, and just listening to what, their challenges were, but what their particular culture was, and how could we actually develop that rapport so that we could recruit from those institutions. That I would tell you that is a particular source.
Yeah, that's really, really a good idea. Yes, who is inspired to do that?
That's right. That's
Mhm.
right. Mhm.
Yeah.
So we could build that into our grant as well.
Wow. I have something to add to that as well. There's a person I know that's working with the Flint team, the No Town documentary, and they've been putting together a festival for HBCUs. So I don't know exactly how it will connect, but I'm gonna tag him and see where he's at on that process.
That sounds
this idea leads to a larger consideration. You know, let's say a young student coming out of an HBCU, they need a place to live, right? So why shouldn't we build some tiny homes on
Right.
some of the vacant land that we have right across from the makerspace? I mean, we've been saying that for a long time now.
Bart, you are in my heart.
They
You-
can move in for, you know, a while until they find a larger space. And then, and therefore you're not only bringing in an educator who's probably very deeply connected with the
Mhm.
community because
Mhm.
they lived it, um, someone who maybe will stay.
That's right. And not only there's an extension that you may not realize from those HBCUs wherever they're planted. Like our son actually went to an HBCU in Atlanta, undergrad, right?
Mhm.
Our oldest daughter went to an HBCU for medical school. But those communities, now oddly enough, I'm a product of HBCU. I'm probably the only one in my family who did not go to one. My husband did not attend one, but I grew up going to HBCU campuses and still carried my family back. That's when our family reconnects at their reunions, you see,
Mhm.
at the homecoming. And in every city, you have HBCU alum organizations. So when they come to Detroit or to Michigan, they're not going to be totally lost. And building those tiny homes gives them a place to live. And then we can connect them not only to the alum associations, but that D9 community is strong.
Yeah, I love it.
Wow. Birds of a feather flock together, Paula. That's all I'm saying right now.
So we've almost exhausted 2 hours of a 3-hour window. And I would say that the depth and width of the conversation has produced the
Outcome.
desired outcome and beyond. Okay, and leadership at the WCID is going to be impressed, I believe, okay, with their bet that the incubator might produce something interesting. And I think Jonathan, he's a fellow. Oh, he's back on. All right, there he is. We thought maybe you might have had an urgent call and had to be called away. And we were just, you know, kind of reviewing what we feel has been a really positive conversation and deep and wide, I might also add. The things that come to mind in responding to your offer, I think are multiple. We have multiple paths converging. Everything from you know, the simplest forms of instruction to something much more dramatic and dynamic in terms of outcomes. And I think one without the other, as was pointed out, it would be kind of superfluous, and we don't want to be wasting anyone's time and energy. So thoughts thoughts, any additional, Monica?
No, I think this has just been excellent, and I think the work, like Jim kept saying, the work begins after, and we're off to the races. We have a working project that we can act on. This doesn't happen in every single conversation, I promise.
This is a year-long execution on behalf of the World Creativity and Innovation Organization. United Nations, you know, moves this agenda. We've been working with Design Corps here, which is the only local United Nations effort in UNESCO in the country. So we're in good stead there. The thing becomes, how do we grow this, you know, more deeply across a wider swath than the southeastern Michigan swath.
I could play the Jim Friedman piece, a little snippet of it, and like.
How long is it?
Like a minute.
Oh, play it.
I'm going to give just one more minute to allow that, what Jim just talked about, to have a voice in this, because they weren't able to attend with us today, but we have been having meetings, and I want you all to feel a little bit friendly with them. And so it's just, I'm just going to play a minute of it just to get a sense of where they're at.
That we exist to make connections. We exist to amplify the message
here?
of people's innovation. We are not here as much to promote world creativity as we are here to promote the Pontiac Incubator, and connect you with other incubators, and for you to say, this is what we're doing, and what can we learn from what you're doing, and what can you learn from us? And we would love during the World Creativity Week to host some kind of a world conversation about the small city, or not small city, but the small city incubators, and you know.
Awesome.
Well, one of the things that I love about what you guys do, and would love for you to spread the word, is that innovation. We have a lot of people who talk about innovation in the educational space. We have a lot of people who talk about education in the digital marketing space. We don't have a lot of people who come to us talking about innovation within the community space. How can we build our communities? How can we innovate within our communities? How can we become partners with, I don't know, Ford, and have them help build the innovation, not just because they want innovative cars, but they want innovative communities that are great places to work and great places to innovate.
What we're witnessing is really stellar performances by young people who are just given the opportunity in filmmaking and digital, just off the charts, no problem. But there's no curriculum. There's no embodiment of knowledge building, and yet all of technology is now drifting to the curiosity, which is the mandate for creativity, which leads to the gateway to imagination and innovation. We don't teach. We absolutely have no room for that in our K-12 environment.
Very old, but I've been in a classroom for 46 years.
Okay. Wow. You can see it. If you'd like to see the rest of that, we'll, it's on our website page. So just wanted to kind of end with that, or if anybody have any additional, go ahead. You're saying something, Jim?
Comments?
My comment is in the form of a question. I just applaud you all for this innovative opportunity, even to gather around design. And then my question that extends is next steps and when?
Tomorrow.
We're with you.
we will push something out to continue this engagement, okay, and we'll bend our schedule to meet what's necessary with your efforts ongoing, and as well with Bart. And Bart has a program that he runs during the summer, so we would like to say that we can, create something that is meaningful within the context of his current programming, if there's room for it. He has a long-term program that he's been running, and it is the kind of program that speaks to the very nature of what we're advocating here. And so it's well run and deep and wide, you don't really recognize it until you're there participating in it. And then you see the work that's been done behind the scenes to allow it to even occur. So we're hoping to be a part of that again this year. And
Yeah.
maybe we can get some funding into Jonathan that will help move that needle. And Pontiac could benefit from that as well.
Anybody have any suggestions for our game plan primary objective? I added Jonathan up here on the stages and tasks. We're going to be working on that proposal for you. And then what, as a group,
That's a great question.
any kind of thoughts of what are we aiming toward? A regional collaboratory?
That's
Okay.
good.
I'm gonna put that down as a marker, but just to let everyone know that this
It's
is
subject to change.
subject to change based on anyone's input. We might have better thoughts even in the morning, so.
We're definitely gonna have better thoughts in the morning.
And this will be in line with one of the state's objectives that we have this little chart down here, graphic. Where is it? Sorry if I'm making you car sick. Zooming in and out, but where is that? Oh, there it is. Growing Michigan Together chart. So we've got Innovation Hub, and in the document, it's titled as a regional innovation district.
Right.
So thinking education is our innovation project.
We've been on innovation districts since Brookings published in 2014. And it was the basis for everything that we were doing on behalf of the Phoenix Center, et cetera. Still is. It seems to be generating enthusiastic efforting.
I do have another question. We didn't touch on health too much, and maybe that just expands us too far. But I just wonder if we aren't talking about a little bit in terms of wellness, because when we talk about walkable communities, I think about just getting people outdoors more and being able to walk and commute. But maybe it's not a major threat in what we present to Jonathan, but by all means, health and wellness, if nothing else, I think Bart kind of started this conversation around mental health and wellness, at least behavioral health.
Yeah.
But even, okay, physical health. There's something to that because, it's just, I know we have the weather and we can't always be outside in the winter months, but there's something to that notion.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a key. That is the number one concern of ours as well, Paula. And we did a resilience initiative. We with Oakland University and presented at the ERA conference in Toronto in 2019. It was a collaboration between our incubator, the Pontiac Public Library, and Oakland University to address that very thing. And they wanted to show a film as a documentary that's been made about resilience and the biology of hope. But we said, well, let's just get busy working on systems and infrastructure and resilience through education, changing the model. And there's a great body of work to draw on for that.
We'll send you the video of the poem that was put forth on behalf of what we put into the event.
Yeah, it inspired a poet there that she talked about, to stay or to go, and it was it's perfect actually for Growing Michigan. When I think about it, it has a growing Michigan sort of theme for it because she was picking up on that power of storytelling and purpose that makes people want to stay and make their place
Mhm.
And she tied that to design thinking.
and tied it to design thinking. So that was a great gift from the universe for us. Because typically in, whatever,
Academia doesn't,
it doesn't value necessarily those things that the community is aspiring toward. It's like that's invisible. And so it wasn't really thought of as important to be doing creative work or resilience work. But I think we're at this point now where there's just no getting around it.
yeah, that's where the building blocks are.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm really glad to have met everyone here on this beautiful Sunday. Now let's all get outside for a bit.
Yeah,
Yes.
we didn't mean to take you
We
away from
didn't-
the family. We know you're
Right.
on
And
sabbatical here.
yeah, Bart has a grandbaby coming into the world.
Yeah, right.
In the world.
In
Oh,
the
in
world.
the world, all right, okay.
Congratulations.
Yes.
So
Yes, by all means. I think we've done our work to get started and we can do more.
there we
Yeah.
go.
I think so.
Great.
That is so great. We'll be tagging everybody with follow-up thoughts tomorrow. And any last thoughts, Jonathan? Any?
Well, I can definitely say, get me your proposal. I really want to see it. Well, if for no other reason than if we're looking at this year, budget cycles kind of now would be the time. But
Okay.
I'm really excited to meet with you on that. And as we're looking at a policy shift, just in the way we teach kids, the way we do it, as opposed to, well, also to an extent what we're teaching, but it's all in the way that engaging the curiosity bit. Let me know, we'll have continued conversation on that policy component there, because there are parts where we can tweak. We just got to figure out, the right levers to pull. And I'm really looking forward to being able to do that.
You just nailed
Wow.
it. You just nailed it.
What a
That's
great ending.
naturally occurring. Naturally occurring. Why wouldn't we take advantage of that? And since it goes to the baseline of creativity, which leads to the imagination, which leads to the ultimate innovation, we should be having our kids experience that at the earliest. And
Absolutely.
repetitively. Okay. I mean, it just we all know it's true. We experienced it. If you were in school, you experienced it. And yet somehow the middle class was able to be larger than that. And we need to get back to the basics of what that is all about. So thanks to all.
We know what our work is.
Thanks to
We
all
got
for
our
your participation.
We have our marching orders.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for pulling